Thank you for joining. Very excited for our next Jersey City Tech Meetup. We have an awesome panel lined up for tonight, and I'm really excited to get into it. Before we get started with the panel, just a few announcements, and then we will jump into the good stuff. So thank you for everyone for joining. For those who don't know, this is the Jersey City Tech Meetup. We host monthly events covering all different topics in tech, bringing together the community of Jersey City and beyond, trying to build a greater tech ecosystem in the area. We're all about community and collaboration. Anyone who wants to get involved, feel free to reach out to me, Ben at JCTechmeetup.com, or just message us on Instagram or anywhere really, and we'd love to collaborate. So thank you for joining the community. Go to jctechmeetup.com for any upcoming events, and yeah, welcome. So thank you. And what we normally do at the physical events, which have been off for the last couple of months, of course, is we would allow anyone in the audience to kind of stand up and share whatever they're working on, whether that's, you know, a new project coming up or an upcoming event, or if they're looking for something like a, you know, an intern or a partner or anything like that. But you know, now that it's kind of all virtual, you can just email me those at ben@jctechmeetup.com if you have anything you'd like to share with the community, and I will gladly spread the word and get that out there. Quick little note on the formatting of the event. We're going to do a panel discussion, and then at the end we're going to answer some audience Q&A. So as you go, if you have questions, be sure to drop them in the Q&A on the bottom of this webinar. Other than that, just use the chat as kind of the networking, because normally in our events in person, we do networking throughout, and that's a big part of the tech meetup. Now that we're virtual, feel free to just kind of use the chat, introduce yourself, and be part of the conversation. Just kind of throughout the whole event, just drop your thoughts and feelings, and yeah. So thanks everyone so much for joining. Let's see. Okay, and another thing is, if you want to stay connected to the community, the Jersey City Tech Meetup community on Facebook is just that. So that's where you could kind of, you know, post that you're looking for something, kind of similar to what I was mentioning before about how you can be a part of the community, not just once a month, but on an ongoing basis. So please join the Facebook community and be part of it. Lastly, before we jump in, I would like to thank a few of our sponsors. Starting with Modern Renaissance Man. This is a men's group for anyone trying to kind of dive deeper into, you know, becoming a stronger and more a better man in general, and just kind of how that can have a downstream effect in the world to everyone around them. So this is a great men's group that I'm happy to be part of. So let me know. Well, for any of these, just feel free to reach out to me if you want more information or would like to dive further. BU Social Media Marketing, for any brands or businesses looking for social media marketing, feel free to hit me up. You might notice that BU is the first two letters of Benjamin Yurkison, but hey, you know, it's in the branding. And Mission 50 co-working space, they're an awesome partner of ours. I just went there yesterday. They are socially distant, and you know, and they have masks and everything in place, so you can kind of get out of your apartment and feel like you live a little bit of a more normal life if you want to kind of have a collaborative spirit in your work. So feel free to let me know if you're trying to get some office space, and we can make that happen. And Tech Weekly, thank you so much for always covering our events, being such an awesome partner, and being a support to the tech community. So thank you, NJ Tech Weekly, for everything you do. Sun Life, if anyone knows anyone or is trying to go solar, residential solar that is, with their home, contact me and I'll get you in touch with the right people at Sun Life to make that happen. All right, cool. And one other thing is that over the next few weeks, there's actually going to be a free workshop on the economy and kind of market indicators. So if you're interested in that and kind of understanding what market indicators mean for your business or your productivity, please let me know, and I'll get you hooked up with this free workshop that we're having with a partner of mine in Brazil, Ricardo, who's an awesome guy. If you want to get involved with that, just let me know and we'll make it happen. And without further ado, I'm really excited about this conversation with our panelists here. We got a really awesome group, and you know, this is a topic that I've been kind of wanting to learn a lot more about myself. We're kind of going to dive into the intersection of STEM, tech, and community. So without further ado, I want to kick this off with a little introduction from our panelists. I'll kick it off with Natasha. If you could just give us a little bit about yourself and what you do, and then we'll go through and jump right into the conversation.
Sure. Hello, I'm Natasha. I'm from Jersey City. I own a company called TechnoChic. It combines arts, crafts, and technology with the goal of getting more girls to be interested in tech at a younger age and just mash up the art and the tech worlds into one. I guess that's a quick intro. Maybe I could go on for days.
It's all right. We'll dive deep into everything very shortly. So thank you so much, Natasha. Appreciate you joining. Deepesh, we could jump to your little intro.
Absolutely. Hello, everybody. Thank you all for being here, and thank you so much for allowing me to be here as well. It's really cool. So my name is Deepesh Dhingra. I am the manager of special exhibits at Liberty Science Center. Basically, my job is really hard to put into a nutshell, but it's I like to say that anything that is not bolted to the walls or to the ground is pretty much under my purview. And that includes like special installments, special installations, exhibitions, galleries, things like that, programs, activities, anything like that. And I started at the Science Center as a volunteer in 2009, and I have worked my way into different positions until now. I also was part of the development committee for the Makerspace, which is now unfortunately not being used for now because of the condition that we're in. But yeah, it was something that we were really proud of when we started. So that's me.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. Moving on to Justin.
Hey, I'm Justin Handsman. I've lived in Jersey most of my life. I've been in Jersey City about 8 or so years now. By day, my trade, I'm a consultant with a specialty in derivatives trading, technology, and regulation for Wall Street. But I'm a longtime maker, been making stuff for over 20 years. I founded a group called JCRMG. We make PPE and donate it all across the country. I'm a serial startup founder. I've done work in medical AI research, import-export stuff, done stuff in the video games business, music industry, and a whole bunch of other stuff too. That's about it for me.
Awesome. Thanks, Justin. Appreciate you joining. Last but not least, Eric. How's it going?
Good. How are you, Ben? Awesome. So I'm Eric. I'm the founder of JC Fab Lab, which is a Fab Lab, for anybody who doesn't know, is a specialized kind of makerspace, but more or less it's a makerspace. It's very much oriented around design, architecture and design, and really, not just sort of a tinkering space necessarily, although many people come here to do that. It's more about oriented around, people who want to do things that are sort of going to end up at creating products or creating things that turn into businesses. And we consider ourselves an incubator. We partner with a lot of local organizations and some national and international ones as well. We're always open to new partnerships. So if anybody's out there listening and interested in a local makerspace that has about 6-year track record of doing great projects in the community here, we'd love to talk to you. That's about it.
Incredible. Well, thanks everyone for joining. This is going to be an awesome conversation. Just a bit on kind of how the panel is going to work. Some questions I'm just going to throw out there, and anyone can just jump in as you see fit. So this is going to be a fun conversation we have. Some I'll make specific to each person in the panel, but other than that, just feel free to jump in as you see fit. And I'm going to start with this one, which is kind of for me, but also I guess for the attendees, is kind of what comes to your mind when you hear the word maker, like someone who's not familiar with the space at all, right? Obviously, someone could just think, oh, maker, they make stuff. But like, how would you describe kind of what that means in a broader perspective to the community?
I guess I could take that.
Sure.
So when I think of the term making, what I'm thinking of is having the opportunity to take whatever life gives you and make a solution out of that. So I think of it very broadly in that if there's a piece of furniture that's broken, making might be making a solution to fix it. It might be taking a phone and adapting it to make it easy to be used by someone with a disability. It might be just the fact that your clothes are too big or too small and you're altering them and making a solution there. So I think it's really a mindset for me in making me feel that I have control over the world around me and I have the power to, create the solutions that I need to create based on my skills and the things and the types of things that we do in the maker movement. So it's that combination of like skill, but really the goal for me is the problem solving.
Nice. So creating like innovative solutions.
Yeah.
Anyone else have anything they want to touch on that?
So I can, one thing that I really like about, and Natasha touched on it, is that it's a mindset. And one of the things that that I really like about the idea of Maker is the fact that anybody who has a creative thought or wants to channel a creative thought it uses their accessible options to try and do that. And using science and technological methods to do that is great. But Maker has been something that has been going on for ages, and it doesn't have to be a scientific thing. It has to be just an idea of solving a problem using options, like Natasha said, or solutions, and trying to figure out how best to make life or work easier. And creativity is part and parcel of that. It is something that we innovate, we invent, and we create based on the need and what we are trying to achieve.
Amazing. So y'all are solving the problems and creating innovative solutions. I love that. The problem solvers of today.
I actually think that there's a bridge into that to things that don't solve problems and don't bring solutions. I think that there's, these, people do, all kinds of wacky, artistic things that don't serve a purpose other than being art, and art just is. So like, it could be, it could be something as wacky as, non-functional things like a toilet paper roll that sits on your head. It could be like, I think of making as historically, you might think of makers as people who were garage tinkerers, inventors, things like that. And I think that's pejorative. And I think that it minimizes, the viewpoint of that. But, makers might be people who do cosplay. They might be people who do robotics. They might be, solving a problem with their 3D printer to fix the gear in their like machine that they like chop down that chops up their salad, and they're fixing a problem in their house. Anybody who makes something or designs something you don't even have to make it. You can be just a designer. That's still part of that movement. And I think, that it doesn't have to be functional or solve a problem. Sometimes it can just be, and I think that, it's a really wacky example I gave, but
I like that example. I might have to make that.
But like, I think that it's really just so much more broad. I really think of it more as people who do things, people who build things and do things, and I think that's how
that's my favorite kind of people. So I'm glad I'm here with y'all. Eric, thanks, Justin. Eric, you have anything you want to touch on that?
Just a couple of words that struck me as important and that came out of other people's mouths so far, which is access or accessibility, and and Natasha, I think you touched on adaptive design. A great part of our mission is to really emphasize these things because and it's not just this year. It's really since our founding that we wanted to make sure that there's people who have access to this equipment, whether they're a kid who just needs to learn how to use a screw gun so they can get a job in construction, or someone who has a disability and wants to either make art or design something that's going to be suitable for them or for others or their peers. So it's really a fundamental thing, and I think that maker spaces per se and like Fab Labs are ideal settings for that kind of work, and it's really what's driven me a lot to want to build this up and keep it going, and partner further with people that do this kind of work. I think there's one other word that came up. I'm trying to remember, but I think that the operative thing that I was hearing from my peers here was design, and you know, we love to talk about design, not just, you know, because we like to make beautiful things, or we like Frank Lloyd Wright or whatever, or Raymond Loewy, whose birthday it is this week, by the way, or next week, I think. Just in case anybody wants to know.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday, Raymond Loewy. Look up his stuff. He's a true visionary designer. Anyway, you know, we like to turn the idea of design into just kind of plain talk and sort of fundamental understanding of what it is. And we, you know, when we teach design, we talk about the two broad aspects of design. One, which is more like design is problem solving, which is a lot of like what Justin touched on and what you guys touched on. And then the other part is aesthetics, and that's you know, that's a little more familiar thing. You know, what color is your car, and do you like the iPhone or not? You know, just the way it feels in your hand, that kind of thing. So
it's
anyway.
like, I like what you said there about like you're basically enabling people to create the things they want to create in their life by kind of having these spaces and giving opportunities to people who might not otherwise have the means. So I like that whole aspect of it. And you touched on, you know, mentioning, you know, the children in the future also. So that kind of segues into kind of, you know, jumping into the STEM community. And what role do you have, or, you know, in the STEM community in Jersey City, and kind of what does that mean for some people who might not be familiar with what STEM does? And that goes to anyone, so anyone can just jump in on that.
So I can start with that one. So, you know, Liberty Science Center has been here since 1993, and our mission has always been to inspire young, you know, people of all ages really into the power, promise, and pure fun of science and technology. The idea of having a place to go to see science in, you know, to learn about science in a fun way, and to also, you know, get inspired into trying to think that, okay, if this is something that is not for me, let me give it a shot and see if I can learn something that will inspire me to one day, you know, do things like cure diseases, or, you know, or you know, end world problems and things like that. And I think that the importance of museums and science centers in general are extremely valuable, especially now in times where we need science to help us get out of you know, situations that we need to use science and technology to better our ways of fixing things. And I kind of think that, you know, a place like Liberty Science Center is vital for communities, because it is accessible for everyone and anyone. And, you know, for looking at Jersey City, for example, the one major thing is that children are not really going into science and technology thinking that it's hard, or thinking that it's something out of their realm. But a place like Liberty Science Center exposes them, or gives them a snapshot or like an appetizer as to what science can be, and what they can do in terms of science and technology. And I think that's why, you know, having a museum in a community like this is super important, and something that we want to continue doing. Whether a pandemic has closed us or not, we want to try and keep it going as much as possible.
Absolutely. And I know when I was a kid, I loved always going to Liberty Science Center. So that's been like a staple for my childhood. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. So I love what you're doing for the community and for the future. That's great. Natasha, did you want to jump on that? And I guess your role in the STEM community and the future?
Sure. Yeah, a lot of what I do is creating programming and products that reaches out to the younger generation, and also you know, adults as well who want to learn a new skill. So a lot of what I do are simple electronic circuit kits, paper engineering kits, cardboard engineering kits, and I run workshops and after school programs and stuff like that in the past. And recently, I've been working on some more online stuff and putting together some digital products as well. So I think that it's really important to create this programming, but I also, you know, what Eric said before about like making it accessible, I see a lot of libraries in New Jersey. Sometimes I would go teach at a library for just a single workshop. they're turning their libraries into maker spaces. They're making them community centers. They're reaching out and saying, we are going to supply the programming so that anyone, no matter if you can afford it or not, can come participate. And I think if I had one wish for Jersey City, it would be that there would be more of this accessible programming, even on the basic level, so that, you could learn to make a set of shelves for your apartment, or, you could learn these basic life skills right in the community. And I think that if that was like my vision for the future, it would be reaching out not only to kids, but to anyone who's like, hey, I don't know this. Let me go learn it,
Yeah, exactly. So that's very interesting. I'm curious what inspired you to even start this in the first place, and what was, I guess, what formed your mission for you?
Oh, me? Well, my parents actually owned a computer store when I was a kid. And I was a very crafty maker. I have a very three-dimensional brain, but I thought that it was really interesting that no one invited me to learn how the circuit board works, or learn how my dad would work in his wood shop. It wasn't like a thing that I was just invited to. I think that was because I was female. I think there's just some cultural issues that we're still working through as a society. And I think that I grew up, and because I was at least exposed to it, I was around the guy who was repairing the computer as a kid, it made it easier for me to come into and say, oh, I actually want to learn about tech. And I think that just, again, creating that exposure at a younger age, making less comments about what is the right type of maker or the right type of making for a certain type of person, whether that be all walks of life. Everyone's a little bit affected by the stereotypes against them. So, if we could just kind of keep as a community trying to be aware of things like that, and just, do our best to not give that to the next generation. I think that's really the goal.
Right. Well, I really love that mission. I love that all-inclusive mentality. That's what the community is all about. And I think especially in Jersey City, that's like a major point of what we all do here. And so I admire what you're doing and what everyone's doing here. That's a good segue to my other question around, how does the STEM initiatives kind of create a positive change for, underrepresented communities or minority communities? And this is for everyone, because I'd like to get your perspective on this. What positive change has the maker and STEM space created to kind of bring in that more all-inclusive, collaborative environment?
So I have a lot to say about this.
All right,
so,
hear it.
I've been volunteering with First on and off, since I was a student in it almost 20 years ago, and it was one of 2 or 3 really core things that changed my life. For me personally, I had this is a really personal story for me. So I had a parent pass away, and I moved 2 weeks later, right at the end of my freshman year in high school. And my life was an absolute wreck, and I just couldn't really get my stuff together for school. So I'd taken myself way off track, and I ended up in this class called Science and Technology, which was a backdoor pipeline to the robotics team at the school. And back then we were still in double and triple digit teams for first. Now they're in 40,000, something like that. I don't even know anymore. And it was new and it was different. And I got to learn to really reintegrate. I've been a loner, and I got to really learn to build a new set of friends, learn how to manage a project, understand deadlines. I got to learn my whole way around. We had a tool shop full of Bridgeport machines. So I got to learn how to weld, TIG and MIG weld. I got to learn how to lathe, mill, press, use a brake, all manual gear, not CNC. So I learned my way around a shop, and that really changed how I thought about everything. And I spent a very large part of the rest of my life trying to figure out how do I, and that created second opportunities for me. And then even after I screwed up myself in school, I'd actually done a lot of competitions, and that created opportunities for me to course correct. And so what I do is I do a lot of time focusing on kids in second chance schools or kids in disadvantaged communities. I specifically coach at a second chance school in Manhattan to be able to, so that these kids can get an opportunity for a second, a third, or fourth choice, so that they have, mentors who've been given that choice to understand what it's like to go through that, who've been through some tough shit, and can, sort of help be along the way with them.
And who can actually believe in that.
So we work with, so like I've had a student whose parents fled the country and left him homeless. I've had students who failed out of 3 or 4 schools due to violence or drugs or gangs. I've had students who've, had all kinds of crazy stories like that. And the thing that really brings me joy when I get to coach with kids like this is to sort of show them that you can come into a program like this with no background, no knowledge, and in a span of a couple of weeks, you can build a 120-pound robot and compete with it, get access to scholarship money, and completely change your trajectory. And watching these kids do that stuff, change how they think about the trajectory of their lives, and then end up getting into college when it wasn't even on their map, is, like, to me, the most transformative thing that I can think of in terms of teaching STEM to kids. And
that's amazing.
It blows my mind.
I love
Not
that.
the same as working in these schools who have these like giant endowments and $1 million machine shops. Those kids are always going to do good in those things because they have this perfect environment. But what we get to do is we get to get like real hands-on with the project demonstratively, but we don't build a robot for the kids. They do it. We kind of create some guidelines and, for a framework for it and teach them through it. But because these programs tend to be smaller, we can give them a lot more attention, right? And we can do a lot more stuff with that. And that you get more of that like one-to-one mentoring. And that's sort of how I think about, working with STEM in disadvantaged communities. And it's how I've been a big portion of my life working, just through other charities to do this stuff. And, a lot of the work that we do with JCRMG is we built our org to focus on sort of like helping really, where we can help really disadvantaged communities who have really big scale problems and they're like way down on the list because they don't have any money, and we want to be able to say and do that.
So you're giving help to the people who actually need it. And I would definitely dive more into that because I want to talk about what you're doing with the masks and everything. But before that, I want
to get into that later. Yeah. That's, to me, that's a really good, way of how I think about this stuff because I've been through it, and how I want to pass that back on and create those opportunities. And I want to work on creating organizations that continue to do that in the community too. So,
well, I appreciate you for doing that. That's a wonderful thing. And then, the future of Jersey City and the surrounding areas, it's something that we really greatly need. So thank you for that. And I want to hear from Deepesh or Eric on this, or both of you actually. But real quick, I just want to remind the attendees, if you have any questions, we're going to do a Q&A at the end. So make sure you drop those into the Q&A and we'll cover them all. So with that, I'd like to hear from you, either Eric or Deepesh, about how your organization is kind of working to bring positive change to underrepresented communities.
I can talk about that a little bit, but first I want to kind of step back. We're using the word STEM here, and we never use that word. We use STEAM. I just really want to say that it is vitally important that we all change the use of our words because words matter.
Can you explain real quick about that difference, actually? Can you then jump in?
I mean, the A stands for art. I mean, Justin brought it up, but, first, so I can't take credit for that. But, art and design to me are, obviously clearly very different things, but the processes and the things that you might use and the materials you might put your hands on and even some of the thinking that you might do are very similar because, any artist is creating something. I mean, paintings are pretty straightforward. That technology hasn't changed much. But anybody is using any contemporary tools or methods or really just, essentially anybody's doing contemporary art who's doing different practices other than painting and metal sculpture or something like that. But even metal sculptors, I mean, they're thinking about the same things we all are in this group, and that anybody who comes through my doors and anybody else who comes in the doors of Liberty Science or whatever, they're all thinking about the same things. But it is important that, science is critical, and everybody wants to believe in science these days, and I truly believe in science, I think as we all do, but science has its limits, and art has an extraordinarily important role. When you go to Europe, if you go to as a tourist anywhere, you go to you don't go to search for the chemistry labs. You go to search for the museums. You go to search for the marketplaces. You look for people making crafts. These are the things of culture, and I think it's critically missing from our culture in a great way. And I think it's again a maker space or a fab lab or something like that that serves the art community. I mean, I happen to be sitting in a studio in Mana Contemporary where there's a lot of artist studios, and frankly, there's a lot of painters here, and so many of the people here are never really gonna talk about things the way that, or talk to me about the things that they do in the sense that they might use a laser cutter, but everybody needs a stencil, everybody needs to draw. We draw here, every painter draws, Anyway, art practice is critically important for us, and I think it goes without saying these days when we're in such isolation, this is incredibly essential to our souls and to our mental health,
Absolutely.
and to our health overall, obviously, which is it's all the same. So I want to make that distinction.
Well, I do appreciate you. That's why we're having this. This is for education for everybody. So I mean, it's all good. I want to be all inclusive. So no, definitely, STEAM it is.
It's all good. It's all good, and I appreciate that you put this together, Ben, and that we're talking about this. It's look, I mean, it's not. STEM somehow became the word, and it's one letter shorter. So
the A is so. I think that the purpose of the acronym though is talking about the fact that there are so many gray areas between all of these 5 different silos. So really, when you're talking about something like STEAM, it means like the combination of 2 or more of these pieces of, I don't know what you would call each, just disciplines, I guess you would say.
Right.
But just to add on to that, I just wanted to do a quick shout out to a company I used to work for called STEM from Dance, which was kind of interesting because we went into schools and taught girls, African-American girls who learned to code LEDs for the purpose of expressing themselves on a dance costume. So it gave the purpose to learn the tech side for the purpose being artistic expression. So it's just like a good example of like how to mash up these different disciplines and just further the knowledge that one type of person doesn't have to sit in one of those disciplines. They can go across and be interested in many of them.
I feel like with STEAM, that kind of like it breaks down the barriers. It's not like you need to just be this team or this team. You're like, this is kind of the team of creators doing all sorts of different cool stuff, and you're on the same team or same STEAM.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's
good
all.
One, Ben. Good one. That was great.
Yeah, good one.
I got the dad jokes. I'm not even a dad yet. I'm ready.
Wow, you're ready.
I want to quickly jump to Deepesh about Liberty Science Center and some of the. I know you guys have a lot of great initiatives across the board. What's some of the work you've done to encourage growth from people from underrepresented or minority communities with Liberty Science Center?
Yeah, absolutely. I can throw out some numbers here and tell you that we are one of the fastest growing museums in the country, over 700,000 a year. I mean, this is definitely pre-COVID and pre all the problems we're having right now. We are one of the fastest growing museums. A third of those are schools and school groups and summer camps and things like that. And about half of those come from underprivileged communities. We reach out to school districts like in Newark and Jersey City, and the idea behind it is not to just add more numbers and have stats.
Right.
The reason is because we do know that we have a voice in Jersey City. We're located in a prime area. We're located in the tech hub of the East Coast, which is New York City and New Jersey now, which is growing to be one of the most prevalent tech hubs in the country. So I kind of think that having a presence brings us into a sense of responsibility for the community and for the town and for the city. And we want to make sure that, we're giving as much opportunities to people, whether they can buy a ticket to Liberty Science Center or not. And that is the biggest issue. It is a museum. The tickets can be expensive, and it's not easy to come to a museum if you have 4 or 5 people in your family. But we still want to get our message to you. We want to bring our mission to those households and to those schools. So we have partnered with so many schools around the state, and in New York City as well. And we send our educators out to those schools, and they will perform science lessons. They will write workshops with the teachers. They will encourage students to come to the science center, and we'll have workshops on site as well. We also do. We partner with a few corporations that provide scholarships to us, so that we can give free summer camp enrollment to our summer camp students. So in the past, when we were doing summer camps, we're hopefully going to start it next year. We would have up to 20 kids that would, come from scholarship programs that corporations would donate to us, and then we would then find a way to get it to the students as well. And we work with, companies like Picatinny, Arsenal, who are very generous in doing that with us, and it's really nice to have that. But also with our general walk-up attendance, we always try to make sure that we are reaching out to as many people in the community as possible. We do negotiate prices with our school districts and everything, and try to make it as accessible as possible, so that if the student cannot come to the science center, we want to make sure that our message is getting to them. And now with COVID, we can't physically go into schools, but we are now creating a whole menu of different workshops that will be accessible through virtual means.
Well, that's wonderful. I love that there's a common theme here, and it's just about like helping people. It's just helping people, and it's kind of what I'm loving to hear from everyone. That's why I really love the maker space. It's just there's a very giving attitude towards it, and that's why I'm happy to be talking with all of you, and I appreciate it. So thank you for sharing that. And kind of segue, going back to Natasha, I know we talked about how these STEAM, there's not everything is siloed, it's all kind of together. So how does a thriving STEAM community support a thriving overall tech community, if in the bigger scheme of things?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
And anyone can jump in on that too, but after she, gives her take.
Well, one of the things that I've been working on recently is I don't know if you know what a NeoPixel is, but it's basically a programmable LED. And I have been putting them on my bicycle because there are these light up rides. I had shout out to Bike JC.
Oh, I love Bike JC.
If you're not a part of Bike JC, you should come. There's rides. We ride all around, all over the place every other Friday. So Bike JC, you can check them out on Instagram. So I started putting these lights on my bike because I wanted to learn how to program them, and I started doing that. And the really fun thing is that now there's so many people who are like, oh, I want to learn. That's really neat. And I think that part of the community building is really just doing interesting things and trying to get people kind of gathered around a certain common interest, and then that makes the whole community learn together, and kind of brings that accessibility, like the attitude of accessibility. Not, oh, there's this tech thing, it sounds really hard, that sounds complicated, but if we can continue to kind of bridge that gap between the just the general community of things that people love and are passionate about in Jersey City, and showcase our awesome technology skills as well. I've met a few other people through that who are, they work all day developing software, and they're like, oh, that's a great idea, I'm gonna put some LEDs on my bike so we'll all ride around. So it's been for me a great social and just like great experience to meet other like-minded people in the community.
Nice. Does anyone appreciate that? Thank you. Does anyone else want to touch on that one?
That's a great thing to bring up, Natasha. Because for many years, when I started this thing, I really wasn't quite sure who was interested, right, and why. And I think a lot of people came into the space and were like, "You have a laser cutter that does what? It does what?" And their minds would just go, But after that, they're like, "Well, what do I use it for? I don't know. Okay, I got to go on and watch the latest thing on HBO or whatever, or take care of my kids, or like do other things that are essential to my life." And like, I think Natasha brings a really brilliant point up that unless there's something essential to you, there's no reason for you to show up here or anywhere, any one of these spaces. And it's important for us, I think, as the people who make the efforts to start these spaces and start these efforts and do these educational efforts and so forth, to really understand what it is that people really want to do, and to give good examples of that. I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and it was I think they were interviewing these folks from Florida. What are they called? I'm sorry, I'm spacing on the name. It has a very clever name, but they were started by architects, and they were like, for every process that we have in our facility, there's actually like an example of something that's made on the laser cutter, like right next to the laser. And so people are like, okay, and it sounds a little bit, kind of hit over the head kind of thing, but it's essential. And there's no reason for me to turn the lights on unless people are going to come in and do something useful for themselves, and that it works within their own personal context. I mean, that's what it's all about. And it is a difficult thing. It is a very difficult thing to sort of think about, get your head around, and offer programming around, because these are very personal things sometimes. And so by definition, it's hard to sort of like necessarily engage an individual, but it's essential to always think about it and to like sort of keep evolving your stuff and sort of like honing in on the specifics of people that of the desires of the people that are in your shop and in your community.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I want to do a little shift up for Justin here. I kind of want to ask about how with the maker space and kind of we talked about the opportunities and the ability to create and innovate, how you shifted your business kind of when the pandemic hit to kind of go full force in on these masks. So I guess if you could just share a little bit more about what you went through and where you're at with that and kind of how it all came about.
Sure. So it's even more rudimentary than that. So we didn't exist prior to April 1st.
It brought you to life.
So like I had no presence in, like, I've been living here, but I had no presence in this community prior to this project. So this is, and my project has also actually brought all of us together through it at various points in time.
Yeah.
Natasha won our hackathon. You worked on our hackathon. Deepesh and Eric both worked with us for doing lasers.
That's awesome.
So the whole community has come together through this. So the story for us is really strange, right? So, I actually never, like, I've been using 3D printers for probably close to a decade, but I never owned one until about a year ago, and until around this time a year ago. And, but I've been making all kinds of projects forever, electronics, wood, metal, all sorts of stuff, right? But and my background is not in manufacturing or plastics at all. But I'm a big fan of layered skills. And for us, what we did was we took the entire spectrum of STEAM, of all of it, science, technology, engineering, art, and math, to put this all together through the community, through a volunteer endeavor. And I founded this on April 1st with a post on our local subreddit. And we got like 15 volunteers on the first day. And by day one, I realized that we make face shields, not masks. These are sort of like, you can think of them almost like open back motorcycle helmets.
Right.
So they're splash and liquid barrier protection, meant to be used as a secondary layer of PPE. So for example, if you work in a hospital and you're intubating a patient, they might vomit, they might cough, they might spit. put lots of particles and droplets on you, it's really important to use this in addition to the masks and the goggles in the hospitals. So as an additional layer of protection. You know, but it doesn't provide respiratory protection. Right. So there were shortages of these things, and the entire plastic supply chain got like wiped out for like months deep. So what we did, we needed to, by day one, we were hearing that like Mount Sinai needed like 30,000 a day, and we're like, okay, we can make one in an hour and a half on a printer, and we're never going to scale that. So what I did was, I realized I have this personality where like I don't do like I'm either like 100 or 0, like I'm in or I'm out. Right. And you know, so I went through and I went to see who really knows their shit, who's like really moving things in the country, and I found 2 or 3 groups who'd figured out how to build injection molds in like 2 or 3 days. And these guys had all totally different problems than we had to solve. So like, you know, every other group that I know that's done injection molding has done it out of a university or a corporation, or raised money over like a really long period of time, or they went and they built like pilot aluminum prototype molds that could only do like a really short run, like they just called up proto labs and just sent them like a file. We didn't do any of that. We built a commercial 8-cavity steel, like multi-million part injection mold, less than 2 months after we founded, fully funded, ready to move like tens of thousands of parts, and built it in like 2.5 weeks. Right. So from day 2, we got all these thought leaders from these other orgs so that we could learn from them and step on top, you know, step on their shoulders and build. And we worked with folks out of like Charlotte Medi out of like North Carolina. We worked with the Ithaca PPE, like Ithaca Generator folks out of Cornell. And those are the teams that I'd reached out to. And they worked, you know, pretty close with me in my early days, and we realized very quickly that we didn't want to be running like an unincorporated business with like a bazillion unpaid employees. So we had to figure out how do we handle this from a volunteer effort. And we worked, you know, so we had like half a dozen folks from our original group, you know, work 2-3 all-nighters in the first between Wednesday and Sunday until we could figure out how to find somebody who could get us a 501c3, right, so that we could operate through another nonprofit and raise tax deductible money. And within like, you know, we set some real hard deadlines. And before I started the org, I'd actually like gone out. I was terrified that we were going to have the same COVID problems that New York has, because we're right across the river. We work in the same office buildings. We take the same commuter trains. We take, you know, PATH and the ferry and the whole deal. And I thought that we'd have the exact same problems with like none of the spotlight and none of the resources, none of the national help. And, you know, to a large extent that more or less happened. And, you know, so I started up, I like cold calling senior management at the hospital saying, I'm making stuff. Is this helpful? Do you want it? You know, are you working with these other groups like we're seeing in the news? And I could not find an established group on this side of the river who was focused in our region. So eventually I went and I started one, and like, you know, we've like taken way off. But, you know, I don't know how to manage like hundreds of people. So we kept it small, like a startup. And we decided that we wanted to sort of like build out print farms for our, you know, for a handful of people who had printers rather than needing multiple people, because you'd have to exponentially scale your supply chain otherwise, you know, to handle it to multiple people. We went like super way out of the, you know, out of the ballpark looking for raw materials, calling like bottling plants and like other people. Like I had a friend who's like a very famous musician, and I had him call like his guitar and string sponsors to see if they had access to plastic. Like we were going like way out of left field in terms of how we were trying to solve problems. So this is where you bring all that science, technology, engineering, and math together. We developed our own software. We developed a whole infrastructure thing. Like, I'll give you an example for the software. We designed a command line application disguised as a chat bot, because people were not putting their information for how much they were producing into the spreadsheets, which we needed to track to be compliant to the FDA emergency use authorizations. So how do we figure out how to do that? You could text a Discord bot. We disguised the command line app as a Discord bot. You went from like a couple of percent, you know, compliance to like 95% of people entering all their numbers all the time. And we did all this like really cool stuff like that, you know, and we were able to put that together in like a couple of days. You know, so we worked with folks who run creative businesses who like make, you know, crafty things and sell them. We worked with folks who had software backgrounds, you know, folks who had finance backgrounds, folks who had, you know, math and stats backgrounds. We worked with like the whole gamut to put this all together, and leveraging everybody's skills. And we've had about a dozen, I'd say, like core group folks. At peak, we had about 75, 78 people in the chat room, about 15 of whom never actually interacted or did anything. They just kind of joined our Discord and like didn't participate. And during peak, when we were still 3D printing, before we cut over to the commercial manufacturing, we did like probably about 50 volunteers. So we did a very different approach where most of these groups say, okay, we're going to get like 500 people with 3D printers and we're going to just decentralize and mass distribute. We said, no, we want to like figure out how do we de-risk the whole supply chain so that people don't have to interact with each other, so that we can centralize our production and do this. And we worked all across the country. We actually have some volunteer. We actually have a friend of mine who's a volunteer who like lives in the islands. He's like not even in America, who like admins my Discord for me. And we just leveraged every aspect of our networks to like build this stuff all together. And initially we were doing masks and all this other stuff too, but we consolidated because we didn't think that we could like do a lot of things really well. We thought that we could do like one thing really well, so we focused on it.
Hey Justin, did you sleep at all during the
I
6
averaged
months?
the first.
I just want to make it clear that like
between the Wednesday and the Sunday,
Justin,
the first week
I went to see Justin a few times during the whole thing, and I really was like, I consider myself a partner, but honestly, like I interjected where I could. I was super busy and did what I could, and but Justin was tireless, and
3 to 4 hours.
It was not just Justin; it was several people on the team.
The whole team
that were tireless.
Yeah, everybody on our team has been like around the clock.
I want to give a shout out to Laura Senkowitz. She's awesome, dude.
Everybody on our leadership team,
Laura's too amazing.
Everybody on our leadership team, I could go through and name everybody, but like we've had, it's just an unbelievable group,
it's an amazing thing, and it's awesome that you pull it all together. It's a really great thing. So I love that. That's kind of like
we have. I mean, and we went like way off the deep end. So like we have like an HR and cultural staff like to make sure that we maintain a culture that we want to work in.
I mean, there's plenty of money. There's plenty of big companies with huge amounts of resources and time that kind of, I don't know, in my mind, haven't achieved some of the stuff that
we actually have a fairly large multinational corporation that we've partnered with because we're able to make this more efficient and less expensively than they are, but they've got plants all over the country. So we work with them to distribute stuff.
Well, I want to bring it in real quick someone in the chat had mentioned about, what are some of the volunteer opportunities here. I know you mentioned, you were kind of volunteer-led organizations. So, I mean, I'm going to kind of go down the line here and see what everyone's thoughts are as far as, people in the community who are trying to get involved in these kind of initiatives. What are the volunteer opportunities out there, whether it's through your organization or, something about? Kind of want to just go down the line here and let everyone share that aspect of it. Because I know a lot of people in the community are eager to get involved however they can. So we kind of want to jump to Natasha for that one, and then we can work down.
Sure. I don't personally have any volunteer needs, but I guess just shout out to, there's another meetup group called Jersey City Makerspace Meetup, and that's been a great resource for meeting people as well, and just seeing. And then Nextdoor, I think everyone's on Nextdoor. I think Justin said that he found some volunteers on Reddit as well. So there are those types of connections that you can just post and literally say like, I made this, is this helpful? And people will let you know if they can use it. So if you have something already that's helpful, it's a great way to reach out.
That's awesome. Thank you. And Deepesh, how about with Liberty Science Center and some of the initiatives you're working on? I mean, or any organization about. I'm just kind of trying to spread the word of how people can get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. When before all this, we had a very big volunteer group, and we were really proud of all of them and having them there. We couldn't really restart the building with volunteers, and so it became like we just had a certain very small amount of staff that we were working with, but we started getting a lot of questions about it, and we started really getting people wanted to really get themselves involved, even virtually through Liberty Science Center. So I can definitely say that we are working on a plan of trying to figure out a volunteer program, because we don't want to increase the amount of people inside the building just for risk factors, but we are trying to come up with virtual jobs and virtual responsibilities that can be done by volunteers from home. And that includes things like helping us deliver programs to the different schools and different groups. It also is things like, how do we market our programs to the people? And so volunteers for that. We also have a lot of admin work that is now starting to pile up just because of the lack of resources. So we're trying to like look out for volunteers for that too. But we want to make sure that we're making the volunteer opportunity fulfilling and valuable, and and that's what we're going to be focused on for the next few weeks. I think there's a lot of talk about it because we're getting a lot of emails. So I know, because I'm looking at that inbox. So I'm trying to.
Well, once you get this locked down, you can I'll be happy to share any opportunities with the community. So hopefully we can help you out too with that. So.
Oh, that would be nice. Yeah, that would be nice. Thank you. Yeah, we really want to spread it around and get as much as we can.
Absolutely. Just let me know. We'll make it happen.
Yeah.
Justin, Eric, any volunteer opportunities from your end?
Lots. So my whole organization is top to bottom volunteer. At the moment, nobody gets paid. We haven't taken a single nickel out of the overhead for our organization. So, our overhead is like our web hosting. Everything else we do goes to projects. So, we run an entirely volunteer-driven organization. The only thing I ask is do the work that you commit to. That's it. So, we have lots of opportunities and things that we're doing. So as at this point, we don't have a huge head count. We probably have like 1 to 2 dozen active folks still right now, but we're continuing to scale. So, while COVID has been sort of on a long downslope here locally, we operate nationally. We operate internationally. We actually ship stuff to like Canada, Mexico. We're currently working on a project that's going to get our stuff to like Puerto Rico and India and some other places too. So like we sort of have like a small, very like mostly local footprint, but we operate like way beyond. And I really like Jersey City because it's like either the most or like the second most diverse city in the country. So great, various sets of backgrounds, ways of approaching problems, skill sets. Love local volunteers because it tends to get like very, very smart, very driven people who have really good outside the box ways of approaching problems. And so we're always looking for volunteers, whether it's for software. We're looking to put in like ERP systems right now because we've like scaled so big. We're looking to put some process and project management, new project management tools in place because I think we've kind of outgrown some of the stuff that we've used. And we're looking to do all sorts of other sorts of things too. Not just making PPE, we're actually, while paralleling that and continuing to grow our PPE projects, we're also working on a fairly large pivot of like, what do we become when we grow up and how do we become a permanent organization? Right. There may or may not be some paid permanent staff that come into that as we do that, and we form our own C3 organization and we break away from United at some point. We're fiscally sponsored by United Way and we operate as an arm of them at the moment, of Hudson County. But for us, lots of volunteer stuff to do, whether it's helping to package and ship stuff, whether it's working on design, whether it's working on web content and social marketing, fundraising, software. There's all whether it's art, whether it's math, whether it's like the whole gamut. We have slots for every kind of skill set that anybody would want to contribute with. Our work touches all of it. So.
Sweet. All right. Well, everyone, Eric, I'll pass it to you. And then I just want to say, anyone, if they're interested, feel free to reach out to me or any of the panelists. I'll definitely get you in touch with who you need to. Eric?
Yeah, just real briefly. We're also doing a pivot here at JC Fab Lab and, attempting to basically shift all of our stuff into a hybrid education format. We're doing things like piloting a 3D printing program where people can take 3D printers home with them, and mixed with in pod-based, in present hybrid education model. we're looking to incorporate new technologies like augmented reality. We've, you know, I have a colleague who's basically spent the last 10 years developing AR technology that really, you know, has tremendous potential for use in this kind of context. So we're excited about using that technology. You know, but obviously we're not just using this stuff just because it's thrills and spills and oohs and ahs. It's, you know, I have an 11-year-old daughter and she's pulling her hair out, sitting on Zoom meetings. I mean, frankly, I'm just still a little bit bemused, I guess, that many schools are just like using business meeting software to carry out school lessons. And, you know, clearly it's the definition of poor design, you know, just like cobbling something into, or shoehorning something into something that really wasn't meant to serve a particular purpose. So we're looking for people who, you know, can do any number of things, you know, whether it's communications and social media and software, but also just like test implementations. We're looking for teachers, people who have skills they can share to build and design samples. And we're looking for architects, we're looking for designers, we're looking for engineers, roboticists, and, you know, and tinkerers too, you know, people who just like, and, you know, people who've sold their company and now have some time on their hands, or even if they're unemployed and they have some time on their hands and are looking for an opportunity to sort of like focus themselves on a task that's going to help themselves, help other people. So our doors are open, our ears are open, and you know, maybe I'm not sure what everybody else is faced with when it comes to COVID, but we're a little bit more, you know, we don't have a legal department, so we are in a facility that does have one. So, you know, we are very good. We're all set up for contact tracing and everything. It's pretty militant here in that regard, and so there's no concerns about people coming in and out of the space. But you know, obviously we're limited like everybody else, but we're determined to really leverage people's skill sets and leverage software and hardware and whatever else might be applicable to really transform education. You know, maker spaces aside, I'm hoping we're going to do stuff that's going to help people turn some corners.
That's awesome. Well, that's great what you guys are doing. I kind of wanted to touch on one more thing with a few questions around, you know, the entrepreneurship business side of what you're doing with the business, with the maker spaces, because you know, a lot of the JC Tech Meetup community are entrepreneurs, and you know, some of them might be interested. You know, how do I start something like this from scratch? Like, what is it? Do I need funding? Like, all those kind of questions might come to mind when you think about a maker space. So, you know, I'll kick off with Natasha. You know, I'm always kicking off with you because you're at the top of my screen. Just want to know you're at the top. So, yeah, I mean, as far as like, you know, someone who wants to get into this business, like, you know, do they need to go get capital? How do they kick something like this off?
Right, that's interesting. One of the businesses that helped me was called Rising Tide Capital. They're a Jersey City-based entrepreneur support business, I guess. So definitely check them out. I took a business course from them to learn how to get off the ground. And that course also offers scholarships, I believe. So if you're like, oh gosh, I don't want to spend any money, I don't want to like speak because this is old information, but check out their website. But yeah, I think that there's also this really great opportunity for, you know, and I hope that like legislators or like city officials are listening to us, because there's a huge opportunity to offer some funding to small businesses, especially in the makerspace, because our businesses are really about giving back to the community. So it's kind of like they would be paying for getting, you know, a direct feedback back to them. So, you know, I would love to see more money coming into, you know, small maker businesses, especially, you know, here in Jersey City.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And Eric, kind of on that note, you know, what was your experience like with that? And also a two-part question. why do some maker spaces fail? You know, what are some of the risks, the business risks associated with it?
Right. I mean, I think maybe some of the people at the table here know, and perhaps some of the people attending as well, that, you know, there's been national, international efforts at creating enormous maker spaces. Look, I mean, in my view, like some of the more successful things have been real estate plays, honestly. The Navy Yard in Brooklyn, and places like that. I mean, look, I mean, co-working spaces theoretically are maker spaces, right? Or they're incubators of sorts. Those have been successful. Again, they're real estate plays ultimately, from a business perspective. But most maker spaces are not. Many smaller maker spaces, such as mine, are not. You know, I don't own a building currently, and love to, but you know, this is one of the critical things is that, you know, look, a makerspace, I knew when I started this thing, I mean, I started a design company first, and then a year later rolled out JC Fab Lab using the same workshop. So, you know, I knew from the get-go that, you know, a makerspace is going to be a challenging thing. It's, people don't understand it, they don't know what to do with it, and frankly, they don't have a lot of disposable income necessarily, and a lot of disposable time to do things. And even if they do, it's kind of an itinerant thing for many people, which is understandable. People have lives and families and all that. You know, this is kind of why it's essential that we strike up partnerships, that there's political will and funding. And, you know, look, I mean, not for nothing, there's plenty of like well-established, wonderful job programs and, you know, programs that do tremendous things, like taking, you know, people who are incarcerated and put them back into help them get back into the workforce, things like that. You know, those are time-honored, the things that are set up are time-honored things and that are set up in nice ways, but they're very traditional and they don't always, they run like slow ships, and so they're not flexible in the way that a space like mine is, or even Liberty Science Center, you know, has some more flexibility in terms of what can be provided and how easily and quickly and, you know, how nimbly. It's hard for politicians to walk into my space and shake my hand because I don't have 50 employees or 100 employees. I'm not canning beans, you know. I don't have a laundromat. These are, you know, these are businesses that are just, that are great, but I think there really needs to be political will and integration with the community to really answer these community issues and to help people find jobs when their jobs disappear. And this is going to happen ongoing and ongoing. I mean, you know, look, we're developing the robots that are essentially going to put some people out of a job. It's my obligation, I feel, to help provide a facility and resources to help people whose job is getting, you know, eliminated. So, and I think that government programs and at city government, whether it's you know, CSR programs from corporations, these are places that really need to look at maker spaces and look at fab labs and how amazing these concepts really are and how strong they can be if they're well funded, well supported, and they have some longevity potential to them.
Right. Well, that's amazing. Thank you for that insight. And Deepesh, I just kind of want to hear from your perspective, you know, like kind of as a larger organization, Liberty Science Center, do you feel like you have that support and these partnerships set up in place? And if so, kind of how has that support helped bring you along on the journey, and how can they help support, you know, smaller businesses?
Yes. So like, you know, like Eric said, yeah, we do have a little bit more flexibility as an established, you know, organization. We can reach out to grants and funders and say that, you know, we have this really cool idea and we really want to push this through and we need your support. And a lot of times, you know, if the idea is strong enough, if the demand is needed, and everything is, if the demand is fulfilled and everything is kind of like, you know, templated in a way and everything is good, people generally would would come to the science center and support us. The thing was that, when we wanted to start our makerspace, we started relatively late compared to a lot of the other museums and organizations around the world, around the country for that matter.
Right.
And so a lot of the questions were like, should we even do it? Like, is this something that we have to do? Is this something that, we are going to be like starting and maybe not having the same amount of expectation as we thought we would? So that was the bigger question. And so we started really surveying the community. We started asking people that were coming to the science center for we were giving them surveys, and we were saying that if we had to create a makerspace, would you want to be here? Would you want to see it? Would you want to be part of it? What kind of workshops would you like to do? Then we started testing out 3D printer workshops on the floors of the science center and just seeing how long people engaged with it. And the demand is there. People want it. It's a very important part of science and technology and STEAM for that matter. And even though we were late to the game, I felt it was absolutely needed for us to have a space for people to channel, like I said in the beginning, channel their creative thought. And Natasha, Justin, and Eric are phenomenal because they've started something from scratch, and to get support for that is incredibly difficult because organizations want you to basically guarantee them that why they're giving you the money, you need to give us something in return, right? And that is, I think, incredibly hard, and it's kudos to groups like this that are working to make sure that happens. And but how I would say is, for corporations to help small businesses is, I feel that there is a big demand for science and technology. Groups like this should exist. And that is the mission. That is the message that you have to give corporations. That is the message you have to tell people, that this is needed. It's not an if or but or maybe or I don't know. It is absolutely mandatory for us to have spaces, inclusive spaces, accessible spaces for people to come in and test their creation and creativity, and use tools that organizations such as these and we are providing to get to those, because in the end, it's going to benefit all of us. If a student comes into our workshops and creates something that is going to benefit the world or benefit everyone. I mean, for example, a big example was the Rutgers saliva test for COVID, right? One of the biggest things was it was created as just a thought, and now it's revolutionizing the way we test for this disease. And so I kind of think that we need to have spaces like this, and that is the message that all these corporations and all these big organizations need to have.
Amazing. Thank you for that insight. Hopefully some of the right people watch this and get that message. After tonight, we're also going to put this on YouTube. So anyone who misses it, we can send it to all the people we think should see this message and make sure they're hearing it loud and clear. So I appreciate you all sharing these insights. I kind of want to go through a round robin of kind of wrap up questions with everyone. So as I go through that, if any attendees have questions they'd like to ask, feel free to drop them in the Q&A and we'll cover those as well. But I kind of want to close this on it's kind of a multi-part question. Actually, we're gonna do one more question and then I'm gonna shoot out to anyone, and then we'll wrap up with where people can find you. What is the future of STEAM? That's a big one I just have that I want to know. What's the future of STEAM in Jersey City and the world? And anyone can jump in on this one. Don't be shy.
So I can talk about what we're doing. And I'll start this off by tying back into the last question and then sort of where we're going. So we actually looked at for a while we were trying to figure out what do we want to be when we grow up. And not that we're not grown up now, we have a pretty big operation, but what does post-COVID world look like really? So one of the things that we were exploring was, I've started multiple businesses in totally different fields. And, when you start a business, there's multiple places that you can get resources. You can go to community banks, you can go to, there's SBA, there's, economic development agencies. There's mentorship from groups like SCORE, Service Corps of Retired Executives. which is phenomenal. I highly suggest that like anybody who wants to like get mentors for like a business, they should check out SCORE. These folks are like retired CEOs and like C-suite folks. They're phenomenal. And you know, there's, you know, even local companies like Goldman has their 10,000 small businesses and 10,000 women. There's like all kinds of programs for all this stuff, right? For like getting resources and education. But, you know, even for like building out a makerspace, it's a very capital intensive thing. Like those fancy laser cutters, those things cost like $30,000. They're not cheap equipment, you know? 3D printers have come way down. You can get a really good 3D printer for like $300 now. But like, you know, that you couldn't like 10 years ago, but, you know, getting milling machines and CNCs, these things still cost thousands of dollars. It costs a lot of money to build in a shop. Right. And all of these pieces, you know, whether it's the real estate, whether it's the equipment, whether it's the support, whether it's the mentoring, whether it's the education, they're all bifurcated in completely separate parts of the ecosystem, and they're not together. And there is no like central community place you can just go to get all of the help that you need. So one of the things that we were exploring was what would a nonprofit that could bring all of those groups together look like? And, you know, a place where you can learn, get support, incubate, make things, and then have a gallery, you know, and we were looking at that and we couldn't land the pitch. It's too broad. It's something that we absolutely think we could do, but it's such a broad pitch, especially for like, you know, the amount of money that it would take, you know, that it's like, how do you go from, you know, running hackathons and making PPE to doing something like that? And so we didn't go with that. And we didn't really think, you know, we didn't really think we could land the pitch for that. So we shifted. You know, so what do I want to bring to the future of STEM in Jersey City? I want to bring something a little bit similar to what we're doing tied into that. And the way that I think about this right now is, you know, my organization has been really good. We're not the best at like ideating like a device, but we're really good at like bringing it to its like ultimate thing and figuring out how to build and scale it in a really efficient way, and sort of coming up with really novel solutions for the infrastructure and for doing your real startup bootstrap stuff, right? And we've also hosted an international hackathon. Natasha actually won it with her team.
Congrats, Natasha.
We had like 97 or so ballpark participants, 27 teams from like a half a dozen countries or something, you know, and, you know, so some of the outcomes that we had from that were multiple people who participated in our hackathon ended up with internships with, you know, through connections to the judges, and the mentors and the panel for that. We've a woman who was from Nepal ended up getting international recognition for her project. And I think she's now like her country's, you know, liaison for like women in 3D printing. Like we've had all kinds of really cool opportunities for students have come out of this, internships and things like that. We've had all kinds of really cool opportunities come out to that can help, you know, and so these things can help bring jobs to local jobs. They can help start businesses. They can help, you know, bring it, you know, resources to people who don't have them. So what we're looking to build now is an ability to do that sort of thing with those sorts of hackathons through a nonprofit entity on a regular basis with funding behind it so that we can actually bring people's stuff to market and not just let them go and hang them off at the end with a money prize. Because we've demonstrably been able to do that repeatedly. And we want to bring those skills and that stuff together and build out our own sort of like R&D lab that we can continue to do that, as well as pursue some of our own projects, do some lectures and some, you know, some other things around that. And at a real sort of like napkin level conversation of what we're doing, you know, that's what we want to build here. And we think that Jersey City is like, if we had anywhere to pick in America to do it right now, here. It's the most diverse place in the country. It's right outside New York City. It's less expensive than New York City. We have space, we have talent. It's a hub of like major Fortune 500 companies. There are resources beyond belief for who we can bring in for subject matter experts. You know, it is everything that you would want to do to run a platform like that. We can do that here. And that's what we're trying to build here. That's what we think our future is here in Jersey City. And we'd like to, you know, work with all the rest of the community to, you know, to continue to like work with all the other groups and integrate and be able to do these things on an ongoing basis and do this to support scalable, you know, humanitarian causes and bring the local to global and also bring the global back to local, solving problems in both directions.
Awesome.
That's
that's great. Thank you for sharing like kind of the mission with everyone and what we're working on. That's what I love about Jersey City too. And I love that kind of you're looking to bring it all together in that way. before we jump to the last one, anyone else want to jump in on the future of STEAM in Jersey City?
Yeah, I'll say I just think that it's going to be all about community. And there's this idea in education, it's like project-based learning. And you go through, you try to learn something based on like an outcome. So I think that, what am I trying to say? I think I think that in the future of STEAM here, what I would want to see is a lot of these like connections happening where people can work on a project together and build the community around the project and add their own skill set to the project, but then also learn from the person next to them who has a different skill set. So I think that in Jersey City, what I'm looking for is that better ability to connect. And I think hopefully as we come back together after this difficult time in our history, we're going to be craving those interactions even more. So I think we should start getting ready for them now.
So to jump back in on that, I completely agree. And I think that, you know, like one of the things that we've tried to do with our group is to like bridge all these communities. Because like very often you'll have like the software folks stay with the software folks, the textile and clothing and cosplay folks stay with their thing, and electronics folks. And it's very unusual to be able to get folks to collaborate across their niches, right? I completely agree with that. You know, to borrow a pop culture reference, I really think that we should like Wu-Tang Clan this, you know, work together, build out our separate things, and then work back together and build ourselves up, you know? And I think that that's really how the community approached this, you know, one of the things we can do about that. And I think that, you know, working with groups together in Jersey City, elevating each other, you know, whether it's, you know, businesses, groups, volunteer things, whatever it is, I think that we have so much that we've demonstrated through the stuff that we've done through COVID, all of us, you know, that we can continue to do those sorts of things. And I think that we're just sort of lighting the spark for that now. And I think that if we're really smart about it, we can do something really, you know, together we can do something really good, you know.
Awesome. It's that collaborative spirit. That's what Jersey City is all about. And I love that, kind of bringing in our unique perspectives and skills and coming together to create something really special. So I want to thank you all for joining. Sorry, I'm not. All right, yeah, Eric, jump in.
Are we out of time? Or
we're going to wrap up in a few minutes. I just want to do a last question thing, but if you have a point to make.
I just wanted to interject a couple of things and highlight a couple of things that were said. So one of the things that, one word that Justin uses, platform, and you know, everything I've done over the years has been in this space and in this context has been all about platforms. I mean, we developed a series of DIY STEAM kits, and one of them is a wind-up car. Well, that wind-up car is an autonomous vehicle waiting to happen, and it is designed from the get-go to make that possible on this platform. And I think you could look at it as in terms of, you know, the smaller things like on the ground, like the actual kits that we might develop, or the educational elements and curricula that we might develop. But I think we also should think about platform when it comes to our businesses and our efforts. Platforms are inherently things that can be integrated. And so just like, I mean, I love the Wu-Tang Clan, but you know, I'm a business person too. So, you know, I love the idea of that Justin highlighted there. And I think that it could be a really nice key to looking to each other, and also continuing to put the efforts in that we've been putting in for the past who knows how many years, everybody. And then you know, I think you know, Natasha said community. I mean, there's nothing more important than that to me. And it's, you know, the community, that the only reason why we should be here is because of the community, and so it should be by the community. And the challenge of having that, making that happen is very real, because the people in the community and some of the most disadvantaged people of the community just don't have the time, resource, and literally internet connections to make it happen. And you know, we need to all keep that in mind, and you know, redouble our efforts to sort of reach out and work with organizations that can find people with the biggest problems, because honestly, they're the best designers in the world, the people with the biggest problems. Everybody's a designer ultimately because they have problems to solve. And the people with the most dire issues, and for you know, Justin, the group that Justin started is a perfect example of that. It was a dire situation, and people came together to solve it. And so that's the other thing I wanted to highlight too.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for sharing. I want to do kind of a quick wrap up from everyone. We're gonna go backwards this time. We're gonna end with Natasha because I always start picking on you. In 30 seconds, what's next for your organization, and where can people find you? This is about the quickness. How good is your pitch, right? So starting with Eric.
I gotta catch my breath and clear my throat. I just talked.
I figured you're on fire. You're already running. Your engine's going.
No, it's all good. I'll keep going. So the best way to reach us is Instagram, JCFabLab, @JCFabLab. That's where we're most active at the moment. Our website is, gets updated as it can be, but Instagram is always a place that is, well, it starts with Insta. So, that's the way it is for us. In terms of what we're looking to do, I mean, we're essentially, as I said before, we're looking to basically pivot and put all our programming online and into hybrid programs. We're looking for big partners now because, it's kind of do or die situation for a lot of people in whatever their employment situations are like, and we're no different. We're finding some really great opportunities now because it is real for so many people, and I think that has emphasized how important it is to form partnerships with organizations like the one that my the people in my group have developed. I guess that's there's the thing that's upcoming and exciting to me is there's funny it's that I've even struck up and renewed talks with organizations in Jersey City like York Street Project, all because I decided that I had some time found that I had some time in my day and made some time in my day to deliver a box of face shields to them. So it's great that happenstance was created, and thanks to Justin's group for that. And another group that's developing in Newark, I don't know, it's called JC, but honestly, like Jersey City, Newark, I feel like we'd be remiss if we weren't including tremendous things that have been happening and developing in Newark. There's groups like Makerhoods over there that are really, those guys got funded. They got $30 million to and some property, and they're building a proper incubator over there, and really from the ground up and in a historical site. It's an incredible place. I just want to give a shout out to Avi about that over that. If you guys want to look up Makerhoods, we're looking for partnerships over there and opportunities, and hopefully, something is going to come together. And I know they're going to be successful. And I hope we can do something similar in Jersey City, because basically Avi and I have known each other for years, and he made it happen in Newark. I would love to make it happen here in Jersey City.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for sharing. Deepesh, what's everything looking like for Liberty Science Center? Where can they find you?
So we're currently open Thursday through Sunday, occasional Mondays. This weekend, we're actually celebrating our big Halloween festival with costume contest and
Nice.
pumpkin patch and some fun, really cool Halloween things. So come out to the Science Center if you'd like to, get to see what's going on. It's www.lsc.org. We're also accessible through all the social media platforms. And if anybody would like to know specifics, you can email me. You can directly email me or talk to me, and I will gladly try to answer as much as I can. I think Liberty Science Center is going to be trying. We're trying to keep ourselves as safe as possible. So there's a mask policy, but we are also trying to make sure that everyone is having a fun time while they're there. Rubik's Cube, DC Superheroes, and Storyland are our traveling galleries right now, and they're really awesome.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing. I appreciate that. All right, Justin, where can people find you?
Okay, so we're like 100% virtual. So some of our folks have never even met, or some of our folks never met for like months until like we were into this. You can find us at jcrmrg.org. JCRMRG. It stands for Jersey City Rapid Maker Response Group, which was designed as a descriptive name of what we were doing, and I never would have picked it had I known that we would grow how we did, because it is way too long. So we're probably going to rebrand that sometime pretty soon when we go into our pivot. You can find us there. All of our other social links can be connected to from our site. We just relaunched the new webpage a couple of days ago. I want to give a huge shout to Katie and the rest of the folks in the team for working on that. They did a wonderful job with the new site. You know, if you need PPE, you want to volunteer, whatever it is, take calls all the way midnight. Hit us up, email us, whatever. We'll get back to you. So,
awesome. Thanks so much, Justin. I appreciate that. And bringing it on home, Natasha.
All right. So yeah, a lot of what I do is creating tech craft kits, which is mostly simple circuit kits combined with paper. Right now, my next step, not being able to teach in-person workshops, is I've been working on digitizing the kit so that you could, instead of receive the paper pieces in the kit, you could print it out and cut it out yourself. So I will be launching a Kickstarter soon to fund the work that goes into doing that and to get the designs. So if you are interested in that, please go to my website. Let me see. So it's technochic.net, techno like technology, chic like fashion, stands for technology should be chic, .net. And you can sign up for my mailing list so you get a ping when that goes live. And I'm also, if you actually want to follow me for real, go up to Instagram, also the same, TechnoChic, @TechnoChic. You can find out about everything that I do. I also build projects for other companies. So you can see some other cool projects that I just post-process and making pictures all the time. So please do follow me there. And that's the best way to message me as well. I respond probably better to Instagram than any other form of communication.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, and anyone watching this, we've been posting on the JC Tech Meetup Instagram as well, tagging everyone. So check that page out, and everyone's tagged there as well. So I just want to thank all the panelists for all the awesome insight and for teaching us about the STEAM community and what you're working on. It's a lot of really great stuff. So thank you all so much for being part of this. Thank you everyone who was watching, and thank you Laura Sankowicz. Shout out for kind of pulling this all together. So appreciate you all, and I hope you have an amazing night.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Bye.